bring them up, make sure.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome back to the English Shooting live stream. Thank you everyone for joining and also your patience over the past few weeks. I would like to say that I was doing some very important stuff, but as you've just seen, there was a lot of fun and games being had. But yes, all plans went out of the window. I'm going to sort of try and catch up over what has happened over the last 3 weeks. There will be a full in-depth video highlighting everything. So I'm not going to literally spend the next hour and a half or 2 hours just going over that because, well, there's other stuff to talk about, and you'll see that all in the full video. But yes, I did say that I was planning to try and do live streams out in America and also try and get content out while we were there. Signal and internet was atrocious the entire time. So I wasn't able to get a stable enough connection for a live stream, and even uploading videos was an absolute nightmare. There's some nights where I was barely able to use Facebook Messenger, but there is lots of amazing stuff coming. I will be showing a little bit of that tonight. Some of it, certainly if you've been over on the English Shooting Facebook page, you would have seen already, and some of it that has been put out on the channel in YouTube Shorts. The first time I've used YouTube Shorts, it was really the only option I had available to in some way share with you guys while I was away. So yes, it's been a while, and for those that are new to the stream or new to the channel, hi, welcome, thank you for joining. And if you didn't know, I've luckily just spent the last 19 days out in the US. We ended up doing over 5,000 miles around, I think it was 12 or 13 different states, and some full auto goodness as well. But I'll get onto that in a little bit because that surprisingly isn't the main topic for this evening. And of course, before I go any further, make sure you hit that like button. There's going to be lots to like, hopefully going forward in this live stream if you like full auto stuff and I don't know, like M1 Garands. So yeah, hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed because apart from the last 3 weeks, we do this every single week. We are now back onto the normal schedule, 7:30 p.m. UK time every single Thursday. But yes, what's the phrase? Out of the pan and into the fire. Literally the first full day that I was back in the UK, I had my FAC grant interview or firearms interview or whatever you want to call it. Me being organised as always, we actually arrived back on the Monday, quite early Monday, came home, and the first thing, instead of putting my bags down and just relaxing after a long flight, I ended up having to bolt my safe in because I didn't end up having time prior to leaving, and I was probably as shocked as many when I got the phone call that there would be an interview. They did want to do the interview, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, but I wasn't going to be in the country, so I had to postpone it to the next available day, which was the first full day back. So the safe behind is now all kitted and booted, ready to go. And yes, the interview. Now, of course, I'm not necessarily going to go into too much detail about it. I more wanted to pose it as to you guys, anybody that's maybe about to have their interview or may have an interview in the future, and you wanted to ask any sort of general or specific questions about the general process and the feel. It's going to be incredibly fresh for me, as it was only like 2 days ago, and can maybe squash some fears or reduce some fears or maybe even heighten some fears and say, oh yes, everything you should be scared of is completely true. But in my experience on that interview, I've had the privilege of four interviews in the past. I had my original shotgun certificate interview, then the FAC, they were done separately. Then I had one about 2 years ago and this was my fourth. And I have to say, credit, this guy was a new, I'm not going to name any names or, again, put anybody on the spot, but he was a new FEO for, reasonably new FEO for Hampshire. I think he said he'd been in the job for about a year, but had come from firearms experience, both professionally and also sort of casually, amateurishly, you know, as he was a shooter himself, which is refreshing. I know a lot of people have a lot of issues with FEOs that don't speak the lingo, and things have to be explained, you know, in a way it's good if you can explain it to somebody that doesn't understand. Then in terms of your justification, you should be pretty ironclad. But having somebody that can speak the lingo, they've been through the process themselves on the other side of it, it actually made for a very good dynamic. There was a lot discussed, and overall I maybe what's the word, hopelessly optimistically or whatever, naively optimistically, I feel it went very well. There was a few things that he said about his initial impression about me. Of course, we had never met, so this was his first time to sort of sit down and talk to me. And I think all I can really say is that it won't be the interview that lets me down. I don't think I said or did anything in the interview which is going to be a marker against me. I actually feel quite positive in the sense that the interview as a whole went, I feel quite positively, and will be a positive note for my application. Now, something that maybe some people aren't aware of, given the reaction that I've had to just the sheer mention of an interview. An interview does not mean that you are getting a certificate. So if you're going through the same process or you're about to, don't think that just because you get an interview that, oh, it's sealed, done, delivered. Even if the FEO tells you you're getting your tickets in the interview, it's not up to them. And actually this FEO, and for those of you that don't know the process, and say anybody from outside of the UK or anybody new to shooting or the shooting community, the FEO is a firearms inquiry officer. They are a civil servant. They are police staff, not police officers, and they work within your county's firearms licensing department. They come out to do a face-to-face interview to basically get to know you, to get a face-to-face personal in-person impression of you. And I think I've said it many times before, where somebody lives, the up-togetherness of that place, you know, the sort of stuff you have lying around, the state of it, how clean it is, and it's all going to point towards your character. It's all going to say something about you. So even without talking to you in your own home, they can get a very good feel for you very quickly. They also come around physically because they need to check your security arrangements. They need to quite literally give your safe a good old tug and make sure that it's not going to come away from the wall, that it's been installed correctly and up to standard, and that it's actually going to do its job in the worst case that somebody you don't want to is trying to gain access to it. The face-to-face interview and the interview part of our firearms licensing system, I'm a big supporter of, because they get to know you, and it's not just a one-way streak either. It's an opportunity to talk to them, and certainly, and there's a lot of people that are very isolated or on their own into their journey into this sport and into the journey of getting their firearm certificate. And whilst they will maybe be, well, they should be at a Home Office approved club, if that is the justification that you're using, this may be the first real opportunity that you've been able to sit down with somebody and really hash things out and maybe understand more about the process. So don't be scared to ask them questions. You know, ask them about the process. Ask them if you've got any questions in law. Now, there's not always the best examples of the FEO's word being gospel. There are plenty of examples that I'm aware of FEOs being very, very wrong in their interpretation or opinion of the law. But not just, say, personal examples all over the country. So I'm not directing that at all to my FEO, because obviously he's a lovely bloke, and I would love to do everything for him to help that report go as smoothly as possible. But yeah, it's they are there for advice. But what I always say is that if you are going to act on something that your FEO has told you or explained to you or given you the green light for, get it in writing. It covers, that is the only way to then really cover your ass. And this was something that, and again, quite refreshing. We spent a lot of time actually talking about the law, talking about interpretation, talking about not only where I would like to see the law go, but also actually where he personally would like to see the law go. And it was just very, very interesting to actually have that sort of conversation with FEO. I never really had that opportunity. It's very much usually down to business, and then they leave. So it was a bit of a weird dynamic from what I was used to, because it was like I was sat there, in a clubhouse, in one of the bars in Bisley, just chewing the fat with another shooter at certain points. So yeah, that's, and what he made explicitly clear, and again, what I was getting onto, despite that deviation, is that the FEO does not have the final say. It is not your FEO, your firearms inquiry officer, that makes the final call on your application. They put together a report based on what you talked about, based on what they've seen and their assessment of you, and then that is put forward to the management. So so that will be the senior management of firearms licensing, and if your case is particularly interesting or different, it may get put forward even to senior police officers. So the person that actually has the final decision of your application or your grant is the chief of police of your local county's, your local county. The general feel, and I've not worked in a firearms licensing department, I can't say this as gospel, but from what I understand, it's usually a sort of a box tick exercise. Given a normal case, a normal applicant, as long as all the boxes are ticked from the interview, from the criminal background checks, from your GP, this, that, and the other, the firearms licensing department will place it on the chief constable's desk and basically say, this one's good to go. We are giving this one the green light. It's only in, say, more, let's say, ambiguous cases, ones that maybe the firearms licensing don't necessarily want to take all of the liability in the decision, they may then ask the chief of police to review it and make a decision. And I think that's going to vary. That seems very black and white, but there's probably a lot either end of that, and there's probably a lot in between. But that's my general understanding of how the system works. So the golden question is, well, how long from here? And he said, well, really, it's the next management meeting, the next time that they have something, they get together and they have time to discuss it. And he said cases are prioritized. He said we may have current certificate holders that may take priority because they're having renewals, and we don't want people out there with guns with their certificates expiring, or there may be people that come to our attention that needs further discussion more urgently, rather than yourself. So he gave a guide of a month to 2 months, which, I mean, it's only going to make it, what is it now? Well, it's probably going to make it about getting on for 2 years. No, 3, 2.5. How long has it been? When did I apply? Well, I applied, it was COVID, during the first ease of lockdown restrictions in COVID. I know it was in October. I'm pretty sure it was in October. So yeah, no, I think it will be getting on for 2 years, if it's another couple of months. But yeah, in terms of where it's going from now, I can't say. I was happy overall with the interview, and again, I think it's going to be a positive overall in the application. But of course, there are other things that need to be considered and will come into the overall decision. So it really is another waiting game. So hopefully within a month or 2 months, I will have some idea or understanding of where things are heading. Hopefully that will be in a positive direction. I mean, I would just love it to come home one day and find something on the mat and that be the end of it. But we're still getting on with what we want to do. We're still, you know, I'm not, it's been long enough now that it's sort of like, you know, it's not a case of whatever, because obviously I do really want the certificates back, but you know, there's still been quite a lot that I've been able to do over the past 5 years without them. I think I would have achieved a hell of a lot more with them, so that's why I want them back. Things become a lot easier and things can move a lot quicker in the plans that I have going forward. So yeah, it's not really, it's a massive update. It's the next step that I've seen, but apart from that, I can't say whether it's going to be a yes or a no yet, and yeah, just have to wait and see. Happy, did you get one of the newer FEOs or a knowledgeable one? Both. So yeah, as I think I said early on in the stream, he had been in the job for about a year, and very, very knowledgeable about the law. I have to say there were a couple of points where I think his interpretation of the law, well, it was different to mine, but we discussed it, and you know, and it was very refreshing where, you know, he wasn't saying this is what it is, this is what you have to do. It's like, well, this is my interpretation, and then it's like, well, actually I interpret it like this, and then we'd have a discussion about it, and he goes, well, I still think it's this interpretation. And I go, well, I still think it's this interpretation. But at multiple points he was saying that, you know, look, actually neither of us are really wrong or right, because a lot of our law is down to interpretation, and it's really only until you end up getting in front of a jury or a judge that interpretation is confirmed or denied. And you know, we spoke about, of course, as firearms owner, there is a lot of grey area and a lot of interpretation. So to steer in a, say, maybe be a bit more safe in your own interpretation, if you interpret it like that, then maybe dial it back to about here. And it was very constructive in that way, and being able to have that, I think, fairly candid conversations. I think all FEOs should be like that. It was pretty positive. And he, you know, we went through all of the guns. I can't remember the exact total. I think it's 18. And we were talking about all of the, you know, basically you have to give obviously justification for every single gun that you want to own. And he seemed completely happy with all the justification that I had. I think he got the idea pretty quickly that I'm a fairly serious, avid competitor, and it's not that there's anything wrong with it, but I'm not somebody that's just going to go to the range once a week, put, you know, a few rounds down range and go and sit in the clubhouse having a chocolate bar and a packet of crisps. You know, I'm trying to go out there and compete in as many competitions as possible at the highest level possible, and I'm trying to, you know, build myself as the best all-round sort of shooter that I can be. And you know, obviously doing it professionally, doing it competitively at a high level, you know, my requirement for more guns is going to be more than somebody that maybe just goes and put 10 round down a bit of paper every single week, and he seemed to get that quite easily. He really understood that. And again, being somebody that's within the community, that sees competitions and understands it, it was, you know, again, I didn't have to teach him to suck eggs. He just got it straight off the bat. I did see somebody talking about biscuits and tea. I did have to double check his ID, because when I offered him some biscuits and a cup of tea, he actually said no. So you know, that did throw me for a minute. I did think, hang about, is this really an FEO, or is this an imposter? Because it's very rare for an FEO to turn down a cup of tea and some biscuits. But yeah, I don't know if you have any specific questions either about my own interview or about the interview process, what you can expect, then please do fire away. I'm happy to answer as many questions as possible. And I didn't get it at the start of the stream, but for anybody new, this is an interactive stream. There is a chat box there. Please do get involved, ask questions, have your opinions heard. We're all about hearing all sides of the argument, whether you're anti-gun, pro-gun, you're pro this or anti that. Then, you know, let's have a discussion about it. The way we move forward is by discussing things, sometimes things that are difficult to discuss, and I'm all about those difficult subjects and opening up those conversations. So yeah, get involved. And for everyone regular watching this, again, welcome back, and you know the deal. It's just 2 hours of me mostly talking shit. So, Andy, hi Callum, I bet you are glad to be back. I think there's a little bit of sarcasm there. There are things that I am genuinely glad to be back for. Mainly the beer. No, there were, like, actually, truth be told, there was some pretty good beer out there. But yeah, there was a moment. I was stood in Cabelas, and they've got this long ass counter. I think I've got loads of videos. Again, sorry, I know there's subscribers that don't have Facebook or don't go onto Facebook or Instagram, but I really utilized Instagram stories. So anyone that saw those were probably well aware how I was absolutely hammering it. So a lot of these stuff has been put out on Instagram stories, but I do have a plethora of photos. You know, because even after going into, like, I don't know, the 20th gun shop, you see a cabinet of guns and it gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling. It's going to be very early on into the trip. Let me find... Here we go. This was it. So we ended up going here the first day and also the last day of the trip. We ended up going full circle on it. So this was and I haven't really, there's a little bit more to it as well. But that is the Cabelas pistol cabinet and rifle rack. So yeah, very different to what we have over here. So I was stood at that counter looking at all the handguns, and there was this sudden realization that tomorrow I won't be able to go and look at these. I won't be even able to go somewhere and touch these, or even go to a museum and look at a Section 5, or peer over a fence at a Section 5 range and get your boxing tissue and your Vaseline. But yeah, there's this sudden sad realization that, yeah, as of tomorrow, pretty much 90% of what I'm looking at will just be non-existent for me, effectively. And you know, I think it is a shame. It's a massive shame. And you know, we talked to so many people while we were out there about, you know, just why, what is it preventing, what is it stopping, and you know, why for sporting purposes can't we have handguns? Why for sporting purposes can't we have semi-auto full-bore rifles? There's a lot of stuff that we can own. There is a lot of stuff that we can own here, but why are those particularly bad? But anyway, we're not going to necessarily turn it into a negative moan session. But yeah, it was a good 2 or 3 years since I'd last been out. So it was nice to get back into the routine of freedom. Robert, so did the drone crash or get shot this time? No, of course, well known, my last drone bit the dust in America on the last visit. The new one survived the whole trip. There was a bit of a moment the first time I flew it out there, which was so this was actually at the full auto. I'm going to refer to it as the full auto range because it's the range that we did all the full auto shooting. And I sent it, I can't remember what altitude, but just straight up. And then I wasn't giving it any, I was literally just going up. There was no other direction. And it started to move. And I'm going, that's not right. So I power it forward to come back to be above me, and it's not coming forward. And then I get the warning on the screen, high winds, please return to home. So I thought, shit, hit the return to home button and go, right, the drone will do everything. It's an automated process. It will be fine. This is why you have this button here, is those oh fuck moments, and it will come in and it will be fine. Unable to return to home automatically, take manual control. Jesus fucking Christ, the first time I properly fly this, I am going to lose it. Luckily managed to bring it down into lighter winds. It must have been very gusty up there, and managed to bring it home. So yeah, I nearly just packed it up and just called it a day with the drone, but there was a lot of good footage that I was able to get overall. Not just at the full auto range, but at the Tri-County Gun Club in Kentucky, and really show off what is available there, and also something that I want to roll into the match videos. So, you know, there's been a couple of match videos recently, the Coats of Iron, and also the, what was the other video? The other match video. There's been 2 match videos. Was it a mini rifle? I can't remember. Anyway, 2 match videos, and a perspective that I have always wanted to get using a drone is that top-down view, looking, you know, the bird's eye, seeing the, you know, the head of the shooter go through and you know, completing a stage. And I was able to get a lot of practice with that out in Kentucky with people running stages, and I think it's really going to add to those videos and really, more than anything, show you exactly the layout of the stage, because it can be very hard sometimes in those videos to relay how something's laid out. You know, what sort of barricades or obstacles may be in the way. So yeah, the drone will be a staple of the channel going forward if I don't crash it. I do have to say, I think he is in here. Before I forget, so if you hadn't guessed, we are moving on to talking about the US now. I really don't know what more I can say about the interview unless you have any other questions on that. But I think I did see him pop up. It depends on what account he's on. Where did he go? Maybe I was just imagining he was here. There we go. Mr. Well, I need to give a thanks to 2 people, 3, lots of people. But before I forget, because I forgot to do it in every single video that I filmed while we were out in America, I do need to give a big thanks to Mr. Outdoor Technica. And if you guys don't know who I'm talking about, I don't know whether he wants his name revealed, but he was on the trip, so you're going to know who he is anyway. So it's a guy called Arian, and runs Outdoor Technica as well as a few other channels and pages. But a big shout out and a big thanks to him for really helping with the filming and the footage. Now he's doing his own videos, so it was like, well, you know, just make use of the footage that I'm getting. So we both shared it. So he's got my footage, I've got his footage, but there was things like I did the majority of the driving, mainly because Dan's was too scary. I'll get on to Dan in a minute. But if you really wouldn't mind heading over to Outdoor Technica and just giving them a subscribe, just as a thanks from me, just going and doing that, because where I was driving, where I was doing a lot of things that wasn't filming, there's stuff that's been captured because Arian was just an absolute machine filming the whole time. So a huge thank you to Arian, because there's going to be stuff that I'm going to be able to show you that without him I wouldn't be able to. The footage wouldn't exist. And there's also a lot of footage there already in stories from the American. From the trip. Also a thank you to Daniela for putting up with me for so long. Again, helped him filming. Certainly helped him filming with Arian. But having other people there during that road trip, and even in the house, was a massive help. Even though your driving did scare me quite a bit. I think I made that pretty clear to him though. But still love you, Daniel. But I'm never getting in a car with you again. No, no, it's fine. But no, it's not happening. But yeah, it was absolutely epic. So again, I'm going to try and not do a complete overview of the trip, but we'll talk a little bit about highlights. So yeah, over 5,000 miles, flew into Chicago, down to Indianapolis, up to Minnesota, and then all the way down to Texas, across to Alabama, then up to Kentucky. Of course, like it sort of goes without saying, the biggest highlight for me was the like, not to diminish the American shooting trips, because that was an incredible week, but after spending a whole day on a range with a class 3 IoT dealer who does also watch the channel, another person I need to give a massive thanks to. I don't think I've said it near enough. So Tom, you will see him in the videos. He was the one that made it all possible, invited us down there, and just was pulling things from left, right, and centre. It was absolutely incredible what he had at his disposal. So what you saw at the beginning of the video was the full auto Glocks. Now, I am calling them full auto Glocks because they are not G18s. So you might be able to, say, oh, you can't tick that one off because you haven't actually technically shot a G18. I'll take a full auto Glock. Like it's a good, it's a good, let's say, halfway house. So basically, these were normal semi-auto Glocks that had just been converted into full auto. And no, before anyone says, I didn't just pick two up and go ham at it. I actually spent a lot of time doing single-handed and with the left hand, or like strong hand and weak hand, and built up confidence to be able to do it. The most difficult thing, certainly doing it one-handed, was the initial kick, the initial flip of the gun. Once you got it going, it was fairly easy to keep on target. Obviously, that flip and bring down, you've already fired about 10 rounds, which is what it can be so intimidating. And doing both of them, you can see actually I get pushed back quite a bit. It was like doing a push-up stood up. But an absolutely incredible experience. I did do a lot more shooting just with the one, but again, God gave you two hands, and there were two full auto Glocks. So, like, what are you gonna do? Like it was meant to be. But there was a lot of other stuff. Of course, the full auto Deagle, which I am currently scrambling to find the video that I literally just exported before the stream. So this has been put up on the channel, but unfortunately Stories likes to crop, and it's like landscape only, so no, portrait only. So this, and I'm gonna have to bring his channel up because I can never remember his name, but we actually got to shoot two guns, including that the full auto Desert Eagle, that were from a much bigger channel, and I'll go and pull that up in a minute and show you guys what else we got to shoot. So a full auto Desert Eagle in 50 AE. He also had a 44 Magnum barrel for it. This thing was, it's exactly what you expect a full auto Desert Eagle in 50 AE to be. Fucking terrifying. Like, my face at the end is genuine fear. And I'm glad it didn't have bigger mags, because I think if I sort of do it frame by frame, it doesn't actually look that bad, but it genuinely felt that if it had been 3 or more shots, the muzzle would be vertical, or a little bit more than vertical. So a lot of people saying, "Oh, why did you shoot it with the with that grip?" Like, you fucking needed it. There was, I don't think you could safely shoot that thing without that full. Well, maybe I wouldn't want to. I mean, I barely held on to the bloody grip itself, the main pistol grip. But yeah, again, something that I never thought I'd ever have the opportunity to do, and ticked it off. I did only do one mag. Not only the fact that the ammunition is so expensive, but it was like, yep, okay, I've ticked that one off. That was fine. So the channel. And as it transpired, so the reason they have all of this stuff is because of this channel. They are the ones that actually build and make a lot of the stuff, I think, if not all of the project guns. I can never remember. If I just put full auto Desert Eagle. So it's Edwin Sarkisian or Sarkisian. Again, a channel, if you are into your gun YouTubing, which is, if you're watching this, you probably are, you would have at least seen his stuff pop up. And I believe it was him that basically commissioned the full auto Desert Eagle, and this is one of his videos on it. So that is the exact same gun that I had the privilege of shooting. Again, same grip on that. So yeah, again, a huge sort of opportunity, and again, I'm incredibly grateful to Tom for inviting me and allowing me. And what was also another treat, and I was pretty much under an NDA, is we actually got to see this being tested. So Richard was also there. He had brought this along to test and get it working and operational. And I will say, this isn't just a needless plug. The thing that got it up and running was mag lube. As soon as Connors started squirting mag lube into the gun, it was running like a dream. So yeah, the Redneck Minigun. It consists of 3 double-barreled AR-15s, and the mechanism is redneck as hell. So obviously he's now released that video. He's made that video, and we got to shoot it as well. And actually before him, because it was part of testing, making sure that it was all up and running. I'll just bring that video up for you guys now. There we go. So yeah, it does actually look, there definitely is some differences to the one in his video versus this. I guess some improvements, some iteration, but yeah, the way it works, if you can sort of glimpse, basically you had a motor on the back here, with a belt spinning it, and this lever. So each of the triggers had a lever coming down, and then you had this lever here, which was actuated by a pull there, which would come into position and then activate the triggers. Really, really basic operation, but it worked. Now, when I shoot it, not all of the guns were functioning. Again, this was before Connors had a little bit of a play and a tweak with it. And there it goes. I'm just getting all those mags loaded up. But we still had a play with it nonetheless. You could. It's one of those things that before you press it, you go, "Are you sure this is a really good idea?" And then Connors got to shoot it, and it ran like a dream when he did it. So yeah, that was fun, and again, something very different and something I never expected to have the opportunity to shoot. And something I'm probably, this would be the last clip from the full auto day. There was a lot more, including, I think we called it an A car. So it was an AR chambered in AK in 7.62 by 39. That was interesting. Full auto, again, like not an M16, a full auto AR-15, and there is a difference between a full auto AR-15 and an M16. There was an Uzi, there was a HKP, was it a P9? I can't remember. But it was a 308 HK machine gun. There was also another new project that's going to go on Edwin's channel, which stupidly I didn't actually go and shoot because, again, that was pretty insane. What else did he have? He had the Uzi. Oh, he had an AK. He had a full auto Vepr. Yeah, there was a lot. But also, I'd never had the opportunity. Sometimes it's just like the simple things in life in comparison. But had the opportunity to shoot my first M1 Garand, and I did it proud. I ended up getting every single shot on target, and no, I didn't get Garand thumb. I was briefed on the proper way to shoot it. Amazing gun to shoot. Actually a lot more enjoyable than the likes of an Enfield or even Mosin. I know, right? Sacrilege. And it's also semi-auto, so you know there is that. So, but yeah, that's there's going to be lots. There will be a dedicated video coming out on that full auto day, because I got to tick more stuff off in that one day than the previous bloody 5 years of going out to the US previously. But yeah, what else? Callaway Ballistics going down to there. The ammunition manufacturers, where again they do things different in America. They had a big standing backstop in the factory, and obviously they're an ammunition manufacturer, they need to test it, so they reel out this backstop, hand us a suppressed 300 blackout, and go on, shoot it. Like, what, in here? They're going, well, yeah, just don't miss. Like, cool. Like, you're a big boy out in the States, right? They don't treat you like an idiot. It's like, you miss and you will suffer the consequence of having to pay for whatever you hit behind it. But yeah, perfect. I make it sound a little bit more reckless than it actually was, but it was just a little bit different to the way that we would normally do things. But it's America, it's the land of the free, and if you do something stupid, you will be allowed to do something stupid, and you will suffer the consequence as a result of it. You won't be legislated into never being able to make a single mistake in your life. Texas. Didn't actually do any shooting in Texas, but it was nice to actually go and explore. We were in Dallas, and despite obviously everyone knowing about the grassy knoll, I seemed to be the only person that didn't click that the grassy knoll was in Dallas. So we ended up going and visiting that, which was a really surreal experience. Seen loads of videos of that over the documentaries, films, and videos on YouTube. So yeah, I'm not going to say that was a highlight of Dallas. There were others, like what was it called? It was the barbecue place. I can't remember. I can't believe I've forgotten what it's called. Terry Black's. And I will just get in there that this was between four of us, but that's what we ended up getting in Terry Black's. So it was a beef rib, or what else do they call it? Beef rib or Jacob's Ladder, some sausage, pork rib, and brisket, and it was hands down the best barbecue I've ever had in my life. And for anyone that knows me, I didn't have any sauce. That's a big thing. So yeah, that was probably, we had an awesome Mexican as well. Had to go to Tex-Mex. We also found a Beretta gallery in Texas, which again we had to go and pop down to. But yeah, I'm skipping a load of stuff, but there will be a full video detailing all that. Of course, we eventually made our way round to Kentucky, and we spent a week with American Shooting Trips. We did various matches, which I managed to pick up 2 trophies. Where's my trophy, David? Managed to get, I think it was 2nd in PCC and 3rd in rifle. I personally had a really poor match performance while I was out there. I think I was far too full of meat, and I felt like I went absolutely horrific. I think if I'd have been on better form, I think the first places were within reach. just silly mistakes using guns that I wasn't familiar with, or maybe a bit tired after traveling 4,500 miles at that point to Kentucky. But it was a fantastic week. You were sort of free to do what you wanted, but there was also some sort of serious training and competition, and we ended up at the end of the week going to a 2-gun competition where we shoot handgun and PCC, and it was a local club that run a weekly competition, and there were some seriously good 3-gunners there, American 3-gunners, and it was just very interesting to sort of put yourself against those guys that do it in week in, week out, and see where you stack up. Again, not a particularly good performance that day. Some again errors, and maybe it's like the reverse now. I started practical shooting in 3-gun, which is predominantly about speed. You know, it's 2 in the targets, or 2 in the target, 1 in the A zone, so you go a lot faster. And I always had an issue of slowing down and bringing up my accuracy for IPSC. Well, where I've done IPSC for so long now, you know, I was concentrating too much on accuracy and not on speed, so it took a good few stages to actually switch that flick off and go full ham at the stage. But again, a fantastic day, and then obviously brings us back to sort of now. Amazing trip. Sort like one of those sort of once in a lifetimes, really. And I think I might be able to convince Connors to go out to Utah in October, all going well. We might do a mini trip. I don't think we're going to go out for that long ever again. So much to catch up on. It's obviously, you know, Connors and I, we run Magload, and it was too much time out of the business. You know, in terms of progression and development, everything stopped because we were away, but orders were still getting shipped. So, you know, anybody that had ordered in that, you know, so Paul was here for a lot of it, and we also have Kat there as well. So Kat came in during the week where all 3 of us were out, and was still processing the orders that she could, and we're just about caught up now. So if anybody did have an order delayed, then I'm really sorry. We did try our absolute best to try and keep things as smooth as possible, but everyone should have everything by now, I think. But yes, maybe 2 weeks. 2 weeks is probably the maximum that I think we can stomach, especially having a poor internet connection. You can never guarantee these things, but I was planning to do a lot more work while I was out there and keep on top of emails, messages, and things like that. And like I could barely get signal to get emails onto my Mac. Luckily, I had 4G, and my contract was good out in most of the states. Well, it's good. Basically, I didn't have to spend a horrendous amount of money in roaming charges. It was all part of my package. So, you know, my phone, I couldn't do a lot of the stuff on my phone that I normally do on my Mac. So, yeah, just a little bit frustrating on that part. But yeah, it is good to be back, and bad for all various reasons. Rick B, if the drone doesn't like wing, don't bring it to Lambradich. It will die 1,000 deaths before the buzzer goes on the first stage. If you fly it at lower altitudes, even in higher winds, it's okay. It's when you start getting above sort of 40-50 meters, that's when it really does catch it. But the thing is, Lambradich, I wouldn't be that scared of like losing control of it, because Lambradich is a big open space. If I put it up and it starts moving towards another stage, I will just drop it down to the floor. But you know, where we were, it went over the backstop, and it was like no, and I lost sight of it. And you know, we're at a range I've never been at before, in a country that, you know, we're visiting with somebody that I'm on their sort of good graces. You know, what the last thing I wanted was to send it into some range officer and be like, "Hi guys, we're the Brits." But Lambradich, a lot more open space, and I'd actually feel a lot more comfortable flying it there. It's going to be very hard to get to put the drone out of sight in Lambradich. But Lambradich is going to be one of those places where actually the drone is going to come into its own, because there's so much running and gunning, and sort of especially up towards the back end of it, where you've got those narrow run throughs where, you know, as part in trying to film that, you know, there was places where it literally had to be, you know, single file on the stage, so it will allow to, you know, really show off the stages, the run and gun long stages at Llanbranich, which is one of the places I am most looking forward to really stretching its legs. Happy, how are the Magload 22 AR mags coming along? Very well. We are still on track and looking at a May delivery for pre-orders. Pre-orders are still open if you are interested in them. There's, you know, they are in production, so at some point we will get a big fuck off box of magazines turn up at the door. That hasn't yet occurred. We do have all of the hardware for them though, so we actually went and got all the hardware sort of black nickel coated, so the mags will be completely sort of blacked out, and we've got all the other bits. So we've got the springs, you know, the inserts, the screws or bolts for them, and all of the bits that will be SLS'd. There will be printed parts on the mag, but the main construction of the mag will be injection molded polymer. So literally everything other than the shell we have, and we're just waiting for the shells to come from the injection molders, and then we'll be sending them out and be able to take them off pre-orders. Stuart, how did the FEO handle your social media presence? I would probably go as far as saying actually supportive. Obviously we touched on previous videos and previous subject matter and topics, and you know, I didn't beat around the bush with it. I think I was very honest and open with you know, what led me to make those videos, where I was coming from with those videos, but also how I understood that it was you know, maybe the delivery of it wasn't appropriate, and actually the overall sort of outcome of that video was not what I had intended, and was not really, you know, there were certain phrases that I used within those videos that I can understand why they were taken, how they were taken, but were not meant to be taken like that. And I said, like, you know, look, I probably got a bit carried away on subject matter that, you know, wasn't anything to do with sporting or anything FAC or SGC related here in the UK, and I learned from it, and I made significant changes. And you know, yes, there are topics that are discussed that aren't of a sporting nature on the channel, but I tend to keep more of a factual line when talking about them. You know, what is the law, what can or can't you do, not necessarily, you know, advocating for things or calling out for things. But yeah, I mean, I think he understood that I was incredibly passionate about the sport, and I did sort of get the feel that as a shooter himself, he sort of liked what I was doing. But this is probably one of the, you know, he was supportive in the fact, was like, look, you know the dangers of doing this, right? You know the dangers of saying the wrong thing or something, having the wrong impression. So he didn't sort of lecture me or maybe even, what's the word? Didn't patronize me on that. It was very much a supportive stance of, I'm here to help you avoid that. And you know, that's why we got into the conversation of, you know, bringing it back, scaling things back, throttling things back, and not letting my passion for things overboil and put me into difficult situations. So, you know, and that was really, I felt the first time that I had somebody from Firearms licensing that was working with me, and actually felt that it was ultimately in my best interest, rather than we really don't like this and we don't want you to do it. It was more you know, yeah, I can see where you're coming from and this, that, and the other, but look at it like this. And, you know, and I felt it was overall very constructive. I don't think that there wasn't anything suggested that the social media presence was an issue in terms of having a social media presence and being online, very active online. But again, the issues arise from the subject matter that is brought up and the way certain opinions in the past had been portrayed. And you know, I very much focus on on certain subject matters, you know, removing my opinion from it and just using the channel as an opportunity to open up discussion. That's why, you know, I always say at the streams, have your opinions heard. Like, let's talk about what you guys think, and you know, and of course I'm gonna, you know, interject and maybe play devil advocates, and in certain situations I'm gonna say I think this is my thoughts on this is my opinion, but it's certainly safer for me to be the devil's advocate rather than going out there shouting my opinions from the rooftops. But yeah, it's again very, very constructive discussion overall. Philip, thanks for joining as always. Welcome back. I really hope you had a positive outcome. You've certainly earned it. I really appreciate that. And I've seen a lot of people that have been you know, supportive in the comments and in, you know, the comments here, in the comments on Facebook, and even people that have messaged, and I do really, really appreciate it. At the end of the day, the reason that I continue to do this is because of you guys. So to see that support and the best wishes is there does mean a lot. And yeah, if I don't specifically say thank you to you, it is very much appreciated, and thank you. Stephen Anderson just handed the forms into my doctor's for my application last Monday. Cost 50 quid. It's not the best, but it's certainly not the worst fee that I've heard of. 50 quid is a bit standard. I think mine costs 60 if I remember. Yeah, 60 quid if I remember correctly. Daniel, we went to 6 Cabelas in total. Oh yeah, in terms of stuff, I was going to talk maybe a little bit about things that I bought back. I don't know if you're going to be able to... Which way is it going? Oh, it's a dancing mic. We bought a lot of t-shirts because, like, what every gun guy needs... Oh, there we go. You can't really see it. It's more of a back t-shirt. There we go. Just little Cabelas pop up there. We went to a lot of Bass Pros and Cabelas because they were just, like, blow your mind huge, and it gets me every single time. I did also, you know, unfortunately we weren't able to bring back any guns, but I was able to quench the thirst of another growing hobby of mine, which is knives. And I tell you what, it was, well, this was actually one of the highlights of the trip. This knife actually ended up spawning a spontaneous live stream. So obviously Americans have, or the USA has very different knife laws to ours, and they're far less restricted in what they can have on them for effectively no reason. So trying to find a UK legal knife, and when I say UK legal, I mean something that you can have in your pocket and not have to give a justification for having. So it can't be locking, it has to be a folding knife, and anything under 3 or 3.5 inches. There's a video on the channel about it. I can't remember it specifically off the top of my head, but I found another CRKT. So previously I had a CRKT Journeyer. Absolutely love that knife, still very much intend to use it, but I just fancy something a bit different, and that's a little bit old now, and it's got absolutely no blade on it. It needs a really good sharpen. So I ended up getting this. So this is a CRKT Symmetry, and I think it's an absolutely fantastic little knife so far. Already used it for various applications, and no, it's for anyone that is not an assisted knife. It is it's just got a very good flick on it, but it's non-locking. It's their glide lock design, so it just things in, but it is very flicky if you get the hang of it and don't lose half your fingers trying to get the hang of it. But I did also treat myself to something that was a little bit of a frivolous purchase, given the fact that it's not a UK legal carry knife, but I have fancied a Benchmade for a very long time, and I get that they're very expensive, and I can never really justify just having it as like an office knife or something that, you know, I can't just have in my pocket, because I would love for it to be legal to be able to carry this. At the end of the day, it is nuts, because these are not safe knives, right? Because they don't lock, so you're cutting something and it closes, you're going to lose your fingers. So you have to be incredibly careful while you're using them. Stupidly, I didn't bring it home, because again, I'm not necessarily nervous about traveling with it, but I have to, as UK law states, I have to have a good reason for transporting this or having it on my persons outside of the house. So it's actually in the office at the moment, but I couldn't resist it when I saw the colours, and you're going to get that, you're going to see very easily why. So I got the mini bug out, and that is the exact knife, black and white, the colours of EnglishShooting. So it's the EnglishShooting Benchmade knife. I'd like to think that they made it especially for me, but of course the thing that makes it non-compliant for carry is that it's got their locking mechanism, so it is a locking folding knife. Incredibly light, quite a small diddy thing, and I did not pay that much for it. It was significantly cheaper, and I bought it in Cabelas. So yeah, that's I probably will do. There's a big synergies between knives and guns. A lot of gun guys are knife guys as well, so I do plan on doing like a bit of a knife review video for those, or something a little bit different. And the other reason that I really like that, whilst this isn't white and black, it was intended to be the EnglishShooting knife, and it's got the white handles, and made by Marmaduke Creations, Damastic. It's a Damastic steel cleaver with multi-layered, so you can just probably see the lines on it. So this is like the fancy, come on, there we go. This is like the fancy biltong knife, as I like to call it, you know, handmade, handcrafted. The Benchmade I see as being the usable pair to that. I think they look nicely just sat there together, although again, I want to be able to use it, so I have it at work where I'm probably going to use it the most. But yeah, the CRKT, it was a bit of a sort of just a random, like everything about this was just so fortuitous. We were heading up through the bottom of Indiana. As we were traveling, like whoever was in the passenger seat or whoever wasn't driving was looking on Google Maps to see if there was anything nearby that we should stop at, and we just so happened to see a really well reviewed gun shop that specialized in ARs. So we were like, cool, we'll stop off there. Really friendly guy. You know, we ended up spending about half an hour chatting to him and a customer. And as we were leaving, a customer said, well, actually, if you're stopping off at various gun shops, you should go to Top Guns. And I was like, oh, cool. And they were about an hour away, so we carried up through Indiana. No, they were about 2.5 hours away, actually, I think. Anyway, we carried up Indiana, and we ended up getting to Top Guns. And we had a look around. Huge shop, lots of stuff. I think Dan got a few bits. Arian might have bought something, and then we were heading out. So it was fortuitous that we were even there, because we had recommended to stop there, and it was like a big complex, had a climbing wall, or a climbing center. They had a pizza place on one side of it, and in the main foyer there was an ice cream parlor. It was hot. We had to stop obviously and have ice cream. It would be rude not to. It just so happens that the brother of the owner of Top Guns and the whole thing was that his wife owns or runs the ice cream parlor. So he sort of said, why are you guys out here? And it's like, well, you know, a bit of business and pleasure. We're here for Magload. Oh, what's Magload? Well, this is what we do. Like, you need to speak to my brother. So we ended up talking to him, and we ended up talking to, it was Steve and Alex, and then with both of them stood there, I think it was Arian that maybe clicked first, but I'm starting to really recognize these guys, and they actually have a fairly large YouTube channel. I think the videos that I'd watched is of them at shows, but I'd definitely seen videos of them before. And we were talking about Magload, and they were very, very helpful with that. But then we started talking about our laws, and we talked about the knives and stuff like that, and he just couldn't resist. So there is a little bit of a live stream over on their Facebook page. So if you want to head over to Top Guns and Top Guns Training Academy, you can see a little interview there, talking through our knife laws. Also, we talk a little bit about our gun laws as well, and the way things are, the culture. And yeah, it was just like just really out of the blue sort of experience, but it was nice nonetheless. So go and check that out if you want to see what we discussed and what we got up to. But yeah, completely not planned, and it was one of those, do you want to go live? And we're like, yeah, and within like 20 seconds he's got the camera on a little stick, and we're going for it. So yeah, thrown in at the deep end. So yeah, it was really great to meet those guys and see that shop. But yeah, there's going to be loads more highlights, but we'll there will be a full video at some point. What are you guys saying? Happy, that, yeah, another big point of the interview. I keep flip-flopping because you guys keep reminding me of stuff. Did your referees actually get contacted? Yes, they have, pretty much straight away. Funnily enough, though, it was the first thing that we started discussing in the interview, because we sat down and he said, did you not read the small print of your references? And I was like, okay, I know where this is going. And I was like, yes, I did. He said, so why did you put an RFD down as your reference? For those who want to know about the ins and outs of your referees, there is a video on the channel saying about how to pick your referees, and you're not allowed to pick a registered firearms dealer as your reference. And of course, I had chosen Connors. But given the amount of time that the application has taken to get to this point, when I first put the application in, Connors didn't have an RFD. So I explained to him that's why he's on there, because I couldn't change it after I submitted. So I picked somebody else. Well, I asked very kindly somebody else for them, and they thankfully said yes. But I ended up getting messages probably an hour or two after he had left my place to say that they had both been in contact, and they had answered all of his questions and stuff like that. So yes, both of my referees were contacted, and they were contacted the same day of the interview. I don't know if that's the norm. As far as I'm aware, none of my prior referees were ever contacted, but we've had a major change in the Home Office guidance in assessing suitability and the processes of issuing or granting a certificate. So it might just be routine now that they absolutely do contact everybody's referees. The other thing that was new during the interview as well is it was all recorded on a body-worn camera. He didn't actually wear it himself, but it was the standard police body cam that he had in his bag. He pulled it out and sat it on the table so it could hear and see both of us. He said that was, again, down to the statutory guidance, I guess, and it's as much as it is for him as it is for me, because at least there is a point of reference. There's never going to be the situation where you go, well, hang on a minute, he told me this, and he goes, no, I didn't, and like everything's recorded, everything's documented, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, and I think that overall it is a very good thing. I think every interaction with your FEO should be documented. This is what I was saying earlier about sending them an email. If they tell you that something is okay to do, follow that up with a clarification email, because it's, FEOs can make mistakes. They can interpret things wrongly, and if you are stood there in court and going, my FEO said this was okay, and he goes, no, I never said that, you are screwed, right? Because ultimately the responsibility lies with you. If you have an email or a recording, video recording of the FEO going, yes, that's absolutely fine, go for your life, then you can say to the court, well, hang on a minute, this is the guy that I lean on for help with interpreting the law. He said this, so I thought it was okay. Well, I'm not saying 100% that that's going to completely divulge you of all responsibility, but it's certainly going to mitigate it. So yeah, I think all interactions, be that on the phone or in person, should be recorded. It would make a lot. There's a lot of situations that I'm aware of that would be would be very different if certain conversations were recorded and well documented. Tony Victor, so you may have grown up. In what sense? Anthony L. ordered stuff Saturday and received it today. Awesome to hear. So if you received it today, that would have been sent out yesterday. Yeah, we the first full day in the office was Tuesday. I say first full day for some, because obviously I had my interview in the morning. I hope you can forgive me for not getting in there straight away and processing orders. So yeah, Tuesday I think we cleared a good amount, and then it was Wednesday where everything else got sort of shipped out. That was backlogged. I think we have a couple of more loader orders actually that have now been built and are finished, and they will go tomorrow. So as of tomorrow, the only orders that will be outstanding will be the pre-orders for the mags, which is people that have pre-ordered them know where they stand with those. So everyone else should be happy. Paul, every time the US and contrast to what we have, our future feels so bleak, whilst the Americans seem on the verge of abolishing the ATF. We can barely get together enough people to beg for 2 twos. It is incredibly different, but that is, I know we can go and get onto the debate of, it's still a right in the UK, we have a Bill of Rights and this, that and the other. We do have the right, there is the right to bear arms in the UK. It is a right to be able to get a firearms or shotgun certificate, but it is not a right to maintain it. And that is where we are very different. We don't have that all-encompassing protective right to bear arms like the Americans do. They also have a pretty cast iron right to the freedom of speech. And that, again, was something that was very, and has always been very eye-opening, is how freely they speak. And it's something that personally I'm very jealous of. The lack of fear of sort of retaliation or judgment in a way of people saying what they really think, and you can end up having some really constructive and interesting conversations because they are not scared to say what they really think, because it's like, out there, it's like, if you don't like what I'm saying, then don't listen, right? I'm not forcing you to listen to me, but if you're going to stand there in front of me, I'm going to tell you exactly what I think, and I'm going to exercise my freedom of speech. So yeah, it is very different. They are very well protected. Also, there's something like 100, like a third of the population, 100 million people out there. I think there are more people that own guns in America than there are people in the UK. Right, so that's a huge contrast, right? We have 750, or I think actually it's more like 650, 700,000 individual license holders here in the UK. Less than 1% of the population. 30% of the population in America own guns, right? So in terms of the political clout, they orders of magnitude larger. That's why they can protect themselves better. That I don't mean in the physical sense. I mean in terms of the community and their laws and their ability to own certain firearms. They managed to get bump stocks overturned, right? We were the real losers on that. I'm not saying that it would have been a good idea even when they weren't explicitly banned in law to go and get a bump stock and use one, I think, you know, the spirit of the law comes in very, very quickly on that one, and I think anybody stood in court with a, you know, and the video of them with a bump stock in the UK going, yes, that's not full auto, I don't think the judge is going to agree. I know the actual definition of full auto, and no, a bump stock doesn't meet that. That's why they are legal in the US. But yeah, we get them banned, right? Something happens in America with a bump stock, they get it banned, we get it banned. They then go, this is bullshit, we're overturn it, and we still have them banned. Again, I'm not here saying we should have bump stocks, but it's like, thanks. Like, you know, it's one of those, you know, someone throws an insult on you, so you thump their smaller brother. You know, it's like, you know, what did we do? Like, but yeah, anyway, I think it more was the fact that the UK government went, oh, silly Americans with their bump stocks, and someone went, you do know they're technically legal here? They are? Well, we must change that at once. And also ban Mars and lever releases, because fuck them too. But yeah, it is a big contrast, and you know, I could spend the next day talking about the differences and what I would love to see from over there over here, and in some cases vice versa. But we can only do what we can do, and I think for us the best thing is all about the numbers. It's a numbers game. Introduce as many people as possible, get as many people shooting, get as many people holding firearm or shotgun certificates as possible, because that's when we will start to get more and more political clout, and not just to have things changed in our favor, but to protect what we already have, to, you know, defend the ability to own what we can already own, and yeah, if we build it to a point where, you know, we can put enough pressure to be able to have handguns back for sporting purposes and semi-auto full balls back for sporting purposes, then absolutely fantastic. But yeah, I think, yeah, we are very different in the sense that we are more in survival mode, and the Americans are very much in the you know, they're more in the, like, the offensive mode of getting things better for them. They're not just defending, they are, you know, they're very proactive in their, you know, regaining certain things back. No Rambo knife. I was tempted by, I think it's a K-bar. They had those like everywhere out there, but I was like, that's a bit silly. The largest knife that I own is this Bowie. A little bit dusty. Should probably give that a bit of a polish. And this, like, I don't know what use I would have for this, but the reason that I have it is that it was my granddad's who passed away a few years ago now, and you know, just I remember as a small child, and I mean, as a small child, this would have been like a machete to me, throwing this into tree stumps in his garden with him. So it's probably why the handle's a little bit loose. But yeah, incredibly sentimental, just because it was my granddad's, and sort of funnily enough, I have like almost like a matched pair. Again, wouldn't ordinarily have a use for this. Very, very similar knives, sort of like a small Bowie, but this was, or well, was my dad's. Fortunately, my dad is still very much about, but yeah, that's, again, it's my dad's knife, and it just so happens to match my granddad's knife. So very, very sentimental in those regards, because they've got quite significant meaning. The idea of just having a big, huge, you know, Rambo style knife, it's like, all right, it might look cool, but like all of my knives have a story. Like even this, like literally just like the cheapest, shittiest knife you could get, locking, unfortunately, so I wouldn't carry it. I wouldn't want to anyway. It's got the tip broken off of it. It really is just sort of like a cheap and nasty knife. But that was my fishing knife. That's, you know, when I was down the beach with my grandparents, that is the knife that I would use for, you know, cutting line. other. I haven't been fishing for a very long time, but there's lots of uses for a knife when you're fishing, as I'm sure you guys already know. So yeah, like it's, you know, I don't have it just for the sake of it. It's got a story for it, and you know, apart from my sort of, you know, everyday knives, which, you know, there's not really anything sentimental about them, but they are a tool. They are a necessary tool for, you know, opening boxes. I got, like, how many boxes did I open today with it? I mean, even when we were on the range in America, Paul pre-cooked some sausages or some chicken to put in a wrap, and he bought a whole cucumber. I have never seen somebody bring a full cucumber to a range, but he bought a full cucumber, and then he's like looking at the wrap and looking at this full cucumber going, I didn't bring a knife. Well, you know, I happened to have it in my pocket, and it was used to cut the cucumber. So yeah, the two CRKTs that I have are purely sort of tool knives for everyday use. Other than the ones that are sentimental, the rest of them had been given. They're all gifts. So again, there's a level of sentimentality with the fact that they were given as gifts. And yeah, so Rambo Knife Daniel would look like a full-size machete. Ha ha ha. Oh look, a state trooper. Like I said, when I bumped into you at KFC walking down the hill, thank you for doing the social media thing. Once I'm out of probation, I'll be... walking down. Oh yes, I'll be applying for my FAC too. Well, Robert, again, that's why I do it. You know, that's the sole reason that I do the channel, is to help people get into the sport and try and make it as easy as possible. Someone's got mine also, thanks. Haribo's go as soon as the envelope is open. I seriously swear there are people that only order for the Haribos. There was one particular customer where within like a 2 or 3 week period, he must have placed half a dozen separate orders, and I'm like, you are literally you just want the stickers and the Haribo. That's why you're doing it that way. What's it matter? Callum, how did you like the M1 Garand? Thinking of trading your Palmetto State Armory AK-47 to my neighbor for one of his M1s. I still have my Russian-made SGL 21 AK, best one, in inventory. It was a great gun. I mean, to be honest, it's the M1 is like like everyone knows what it is. It's just got it's like it's a cult piece, right? Just like in the UK, if you're a shooter in the UK, you have to have an Enfield. Granted, I've never actually owned one, but I will. Maybe that should be to if I get the certificates, then the first gun I go out and get is an Enfield, just to make up for the fact that I had certificates for like 3 or 4 years, and I bought a Mosin Nagant first. But yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that you are American. If you are American, then the M1 Garand is sort of the equivalent of the Enfield out there for you guys. So yeah, I really enjoyed shooting it. I mean, we were only shooting it standing at like 25 yards, but every shot was on target. You get the ping, and like, I think you have to realize the significance of the M1 when you've got full auto Glocks, you've got Uzis, you've got AKs, you've got a Redneck Minigun, and people are still excited to pick up the M1 and go and shoot it, right? And they had he had, I think it was I want to say it was a 1912, but it was a very, very early 1911 M45, and we had as big a smile shooting that as we did, say, the Uzi, you know, and it's because of the significance of that gun. You know, the M1 just has that presence around it. So many people know it, and it's just a cult piece. So yeah, I wouldn't advise against that trade if I was you. Now, there are a few other news topics. It wasn't just meant to be about America and the interview. Posted this today. This is really doing the rounds at the moment, and a little bit of a let's a little bit backtrack into history. Who remembers this? And I think I said actually it was the Times, but it wasn't. It was actually the Guardian. So this guy thought it would be a good idea to go to SHOT Show, picks up a 15-22, and then asks, "Is this the gun that was recently used in a mass shooting?" Needless to say, he doesn't last very long in the SHOT Show. In the show, much after that, I think. Yeah, it was at SHOT Show. It's just like, you absolute dick. And this is the same guy that picks up, I think it's an air rifle, and starts pointing it at people. So, "Oh my god, it's so scary, I can see that guy." Well, yeah, no shit, dickhead, that's what a scope does. And this BBC journalists in quotation marks, has almost trumped him. So I don't know if you guys saw this. From America, where Walmart doesn't have plug adapter for my UK laptop, but on the other hand, I can buy a rifle and ammunition. I'll give you a second. Yes, he mistook an air gun for a full bore rifle. And from her first-hand experience, you can buy an adapter in Walmart. You can buy pretty much anything in Walmart. But just absolute, just gutter scraping journalism. And to my surprise, I thought Walmart had actually stopped all sale of live firearms. I don't know, I guess there's other states, but certainly not in Kentucky. Kentucky, you can still buy a 12 gauge or a 308 or 223 rifle in Walmart, and you can still buy ammo there. There were some Walmart stores across the US that we ended up in that didn't. They didn't have any ammo, or they didn't have any guns, or they didn't have any guns at all, and they didn't have any ammo. There were some that just did ammo, and some that did both. So I think it really does depend from state to state, and maybe even from store to store, whether they do or don't. But like Daisy rifles and the Red Riders were all, I think they were in every single one of them, because out there they are considered toys, because that's what they are. They are intended as like kids' first foray into something that fires a projectile, and that smooth brain decided to make a whole post about it. I really hope he understands the error of his ways now, but it certainly did give me a little bit of a chuckle. Some real news in something that will probably affect us quite significantly, and something that we should absolutely follow very, very closely. There's been an update from BASC on lead ammunition, and the update is that the lead ammunition consultation to launch the 6th of May. So on the 6th of May, the Health and Safety Executive will launch a 6-month public consultation on proposed restrictions for lead ammunition in England, Wales and Scotland. Of course, we knew this was coming. There's been huge talks about lead, but basically they are, and it's off the back of the EU, and I think they go on to that. I think it does go on to talk about the EU changes. Wide range restrictions on lead ammunition have been proposed in Europe as part of EU REACH process. We anticipate the UK REACH will make similar recommendations. So this isn't necessarily everyone throw your arms up, run around and panic, but they are very much talking about a lead ammunition ban, not just for game shooting, not just for sort of live quarry, but also for sporting purposes. And for the likes of practical shooting, it would be an absolute death nail, because we use steel targets. You cannot shoot steel at steel. It's actually incredibly dangerous, and we just wouldn't be allowed to continue doing what we do. So we're either going to have to, well, we'd have to end up changing the targetry, which would put us at a massive disadvantage to the rest of the world competitively, because we won't be used to shooting the same targets that everybody else shoots. And non-steel targets, they fall differently, they react differently, and it's just not going to help us with our training. So this is sort of the summary. All outdoor uses of lead ammunition are covered by the review. That includes lead ammunition for live quarry and target shooting, air guns, pistols, shotguns, rifles, and historic firearms. Anything that is shot outside. Now, what we have talked about and what has been talked and proposed is an exemption, to have a range exemption. So you won't be able to put out a target on your land anymore and just shoot at will. It will have to be a designated, or shoot lead ammunition as you see fit on your own land, but maybe having designated ranges, so ranges that facilitate practical shooting, where you go, we still need to use lead, and there are various measures used to make sure that the lead is contained and that it only stays in that site. What the biggest push for all this whole lead debacle is, one is, it is health and safety, but it's also the food chain, especially the game. And this is where maybe the conspiracies of Bask's massive push and collaboration with the game meat industry and wanting to ban lead. Of course, the supermarkets on the whole don't want lead shots, because it's harder to detect, and lead is poisonous, although I don't think there's a single case of anybody actually getting lead poisoning from eating game, despite what the scaremongers would say. But it certainly makes it a hell of a lot easier to sell game. It's a lot both in the actual physical application of screening it and making sure it is safe to eat, but also advertising it and encouraging people to eat game meat. So Bask, I think, want that because of their potential or maybe suggested, reported, supposed connections to certain organizations, or the supposed vested interest in certain organizations and companies. So that's where a lot of people were thinking, well, fuck you guys, yeah, we understand why you want to move it forward for the game meat industry, but what about the rest of us? And then of course there's the argument that lead steel shot doesn't kill as effectively, there's more flyers, there's the patterns aren't as good, so therefore it's a less effective kill. The steel shot, either if you're non-lead ammunition, is either horrendously expensive or doesn't deform and give as clean a kill, because it creates less of a cavity for a more instant kill on bigger game. So and then let's not forget the whole fucking song and dance that they did with the cartridge industry, coming out and saying, yeah, the cartridge industry is ready, and the cartridge industry turning around and categorically saying, no, we're fucking not, we never told you that. And what it had been reported to me, that it was one individual from one company that actually told Bask that the whole industry was ready, and reportedly Bask took the advice of one person from one company without doing their due diligence. So that felt a little bit rushed, and this whole 5 year voluntary transition, well, I guess that's one benefit of COVID, because that has seemed to have stopped. But what obviously hasn't stopped is this, if they make it law, it doesn't, and this was one of the only saving graces, I guess, of the whole thing, was that voluntarily transitioning and getting ready for it would mean that if a total ban actually came into law, we would be ready for it. The problem is we're not ready for it. It's and I think Bask have, I said it back then, they have royally shot themselves in the foot, because they've given the antis on a silver platter all the justification for moving away from lead. Bask can't now have the argument that they don't want it. They can't now have the argument that it's a horrendously bad idea for certain areas of our sport or community, because they went out and like, before any opposition came out, they were already waving the white flag. And I know it ended up pissing off a huge amount of their membership, and actually lost them a huge amount of their members. So this is something that it will potentially affect all shooters, no matter what you shoot at, because, you know, unless for some reason you have completely switched over to non-lead ammunition or already, in which case you're fine, crack on, this won't affect you. But if you use lead, you know, again, in your air gun, I mean, how is that going to work with air gun, you know, pellets? You know, like, it's going to affect us massively if they bring this in for sport. If they bring it in just for game, and I'm not saying that that's okay and that maybe shouldn't be opposed, but from a sporting purposes, you know, nothing would change. For game shooting, massive things would change. So we're just going to have to see. It's a 6-month, I think it said, yeah, a 6-month public consultation. So we will have to wait. The HSE proposals and consultation were due in April, but have been deferred until May, coming after the 2022 local elections. So Basque, and again, I mean, they're covering it and giving it all the information. What happens next? First and foremost, it's important to stress that if any restrictions on lead ammunition are legislated for as a result of the UK REACH process, they would be subject to appropriate transition periods. As such, we do not expect any restrictions to take effect before 2025. Okay, so we've got 3 years. Whoop-de-doo, Basil. Wide-ranging restrictions on lead ammunition have been proposed in Europe as part of the EU REACH process. We anticipate the UK REACH will make similar recommendations over the coming months. UK REACH process will involve scientific scrutiny of the HSC findings and proposals through an independent panel of experts. Basque has been approved as an accredited stakeholder. Draft opinion will follow later on this year or early 2023. The review will culminate in recommendations being submitted no later than April 23. So yeah, we're really not going to really hear anything until well into next year. But yeah, I'll be watching this. So here we go. Depending on what restrictions are proposed, Basque and other shooting organisations will need to seek exemptions whether there is evidence that there are no viable alternatives to lead. Similarly, as we saw on factors that meant transitions inappropriate, and for situations where lead can continue to be used in settings that present negligible or no lift. So yeah, this is what I was saying earlier about having those specific exemptions for particular areas, allowing things like practical shooting to carry on. But it's like, don't get me wrong, for all the exemptions that they may be able to pull out of the hat, there will be people that slip by the wayside and are forgotten about, and their area of the sport. I mean, it's all our sport. I hate sort of segregating it, and you know, we were all shooters at the end of the day. There will be areas of shooting that are absolutely demolished because Basque isn't aware of them, don't push as hard for them, or they just get forgotten. So yeah, we will have to again wait and see. But I'll be keeping an update on that for all of you. So the I mean, I'm absolutely loving Field Sports Britain's headlines of recent. So you might have thought that all of the gum grabbing was over, but wait, there's more. Nottinghamshire police have been, I don't know what to call it, but there's a particular story that was broken on Field Sports Britain. So of course we've seen this a lot in Devon and Cornwall after the Plymouth shooting. Basically, firearms licensing departments looking back through previous applications or grants or renewals, and maybe erring a lot more on the side of caution and I think what Fieldsport Britain ended up saying was that it was authoritarian actions due to police failing. So it was like they didn't just start erring on the side of caution. They went well over the line in their response, and this seems to be one of those cases. So a gun dog trainer, Carl Sawyer, had police turn up at his door, and they went originally for the voluntary surrender. You can go and watch the whole video over on Fieldsport's channel news, or Fieldsports News. But they turned up, ended up asking him to voluntarily surrender them for the purpose of review, in which he refused because he was like, "You're not giving me a very good reason here. What's going on?" And then they came back with a revocation. And as you can see, Nottinghamshire police gun grab cock up. What they ended up doing is actually coming back with the letter for a revocation of a firearm certificate. Right? And I see if I can find the subtitles. So he basically told him no, stuck to his excuse the pun, stuck to his guns. I'm trying to see if I can find the bit. But there's is this it? But basically the police officers, it's like their language on it is just like absolutely laughable. So it's been sent over to them via email. That's why they've got the laptop. Oh, come on, where is it? I can't find it. Anyway, but what he says is, like the subtitles that come up, it's like, it's basically the same thing but different. So they'd sent over the revocation of a firearm certificate, and he's like, "I don't have a firearm certificate." And they're like, "Oh, well, we're going to use this anyway to take away your shotgun certificate." So in a legal sense, they didn't actually have any legal basis to take away his guns. They didn't actually have any legal basis to enter his property because they didn't have a warrant, and they didn't have they didn't have the revocation, which gives them the power to enter if necessary for his shotgun certificates. But given a lot of pressure, and at the end of the day, it's, firearms owners and certificate holders are, law-abiding, cooperative, willing people, right? And it gets to a point that even though he put up some opposition, because he refused to voluntarily surrender, it triggered a revocation. And even though he was like, "This doesn't add up, you've got the wrong paperwork," he still went and got the guns and handed them over and cooperated with the wrong revocation. Now, it's nothing. I don't think him necessarily sticking to his guns, even with the wrong revocation, would have really yielded much, because even if he was like, "No, you're not coming in still," they would have gone back to the chief. They would have gone back to their firearms licensing department, realised what mistake had been made, issue the right revocation, and then they would have all of the legal powers, so to gain entry and to remove the guns. So it was only ever going to delay it, but it was, I can't remember what they said actually triggered it. I think it was a previous physical health issue that he had that on a secondary review, which most likely was triggered because of the Plymouth shooting, flagged him up, and they went and took him away. And obviously he's a gun dog trainer. He needs guns to be able to do his job. This isn't just his hobby. It's affecting his ability to put food on the table and keep a roof over his head. So it will be very interesting to see how that one sort of pans out. And we did a live stream about it. I may even have made a separate video on it. You don't ever think that you're not going to get that knock on the door. And you've got to decide how you're going to handle it, because in the heat of the moment, you're going to be incredibly emotional. You're going to be very you're not going to have the ability to sort of think straight. and I think that's why a lot of people as a result of the Plymouth shooting, that's why they that it was proposed to them, we've come to take your guns. And they never asked, well, is that a voluntary surrender, or have you issued a revocation? Because it's like, oh my fucking god, there's police at my door and they're asking for my guns. I'm going to give the guns. So it does seem on the face of it that there are still sort of unfair revocations going out, and that certain police forces are certainly taking a much harder line approach, and maybe acting over the mark and over the line. Hopefully things do calm down. I haven't yet seen any updates from the appeals that are going on with people in Devon and Cornwall, and it will be very interesting to see the outcomes of those eventually. That looks fun. I'm looking to join CPSA, as I'm not convinced Basque are doing what they need for the sport. Do you think we should bite the bullet as such and keep supporting Basque? Interesting question, and I talked about this a while ago, that with certain things that Basque has been doing more recently, I was actually pretty impressed, and they had seemed to be doing a lot of good and actually putting their neck out there and really talking the talk, not mincing their words when it came to issues like, these gun grabs, the police, some of the stuff that was coming out of there in response to firearms licensing still not opening up, and the disparity between different counties and things like that. They really didn't pull any punches. And I completely understand the whole thing, which is, even if you don't feel they're benefiting you, are they still a benefit? Is Basque overall a benefit to the shooting community? I think it's pretty hard to say no. Do they do the absolute best job? Are they 100% a benefit to the shooting community? No. I think that's also fair to say. I think they make a lot of mistakes. I think there's been a few, 2 steps forward and one step back. But are they ultimately a part, or even a significant part of our defense, as it were? I think yes, and I do understand the point of view of, just keep them strong, keep all of our organizations strong. But then that's where the issue lies. Keep all of our organizations strong. Basque is the largest and probably has the largest political clout. But if you're going to take the view of supporting as many organizations as possible that forms this overall greater umbrella over us, which does have a few holes and is a bit see-through in places, but where do you stop? Because should you also be supporting the Countryside Alliance and Basque and the CPSA and the Gun Trade Association and what is it, the 3 Cs and the it's the game, not gamekeepers, oh god, it's the one that recently came out with insurance, I want to say like the GTO, no, god, you guys know the game, oh bloody, is it gamekeepers? Keepers Association. It's the NGO, the National Gamekeepers Organization, that recently came out. So there's a multitude of different organizations, and it's like, for me, it's if you don't see a benefit in supporting Basque, either personal or otherwise, but you just want to give them money on the chance that it's going to help them help the sport, then why not the other organisation? So it's sort of like an all or nothing approach in that regard. But I am getting actually fairly close to biting the bullet and getting Basque membership again. I'm trying to quantify it. I don't know why. I feel more I do feel more that I should. I feel more that I should than that I shouldn't. But I can't. That's just my general feeling, and it's, you know, I think it's because they're a lot more active on social media now. They do a lot more interactive live events that really does answer people's questions. They're seemingly being a lot more transparent, and news is coming out faster with them. I'd like to think I had something to do with that, and, you know, in talking to the director of communication and telling him what an awful fucking job they were doing. But again, you know, my interactions specifically with the director of communications, like, stuff was taken on board. My questions were answered. It was very, very responsive, and it's sort of like, maybe things have changed. They have got the message that, you know, they need to listen to their members. They need to embrace new technology and new medias to help overall protect the sport. So yeah, I don't know. At the end of the day, I'm still not a BAS member. The biggest benefit was the insurance and the absolute garbage that was fed to us, saying, you know, we've cancelled this £1 million cost insurance, and now we have this £1 million fighting fund, and then being adamant that it wasn't linked at all. Just absolute garbage. And then the lead, you know, and the lies around their vested interest in 50 cows. Oh no, we did it out of the goodness of our heart to help the 50 BMG not get banned. And you're like, but you specifically said that actually it was about high muzzle energy rifles, and big game rifles being banned was actually your main interest. So there was a lot of bullshitting going on, and I think myself and a lot of other members got to the end of their tethers with it and just thought, fuck you. If you know, you exist because of us, right? You are here because of your members and no other reason, right? So don't tell us what you're going to do with our money, right? Don't you know, don't make executive decisions on our behalf because you're here to represent us. I think they've got that message now. I don't think it's maybe 100%, but there's certainly been some improvements from what I've seen. It's a really long-winded way of saying I don't know. I don't think it's I don't think it's the worst spend of whatever it is a year you know, I don't think it's the worst potential setting on fire to money that you could do. Very so back on quickly to the interview, it's reminded me of a very good point. This is why I actually really enjoyed the interview. My FEO made an incredibly good point about, we started talking about the fee increases. Now, you guys will know that to an extent I am a supporter of fee increases, mainly because it removes the argument that we don't cover our own costs, and it's a weapon that can be used against us by the antis, as long as it's fair and proportionate, you know, in line with inflation, or it is actually covering the costs, and police forces don't start making money out of us. And the FEO looked up and he goes, you'll probably find all of the people that bitch, whine, and I don't think this isn't verbatim, right? But in not so many words, all the people that bitch, piss and moan about the fee increases are still giving Basque £90 a year. And I was like, I really hope I get my certificates, because I really want to have more visits from you, like, in the best possible way. And I was like, that's a really fucking good point. Actually, there's probably a lot of people that are really dead against the fee increase for a firearms certificate, but they are more than happy to pay, not specifically Basque, but pay organisations that actually don't do a lot for us, you know, 90 quid a year. You know, what this is what we broke it down to. If a firearms certificate suddenly was £200, well, over 5 years, you know, that works out to £40 a year. You're spending double that on a Countryside Alliance or BAS membership. So, you know, it's about perspective. Chris, could you then hand all firearms/shotguns to an RFD for them to sell on your behalf? You mean in case of in the case of a revocation or voluntarily surrender? Absolutely. So even if you have your certificates revoked, or you've surrendered them voluntarily for the purpose of review, you have bought those firearms and guns legally, right? They are your legal property. The way that, even though I don't currently have certificates, the guns that I purchased whilst I had certificates are still my guns. It's still my property. I have the ultimate say in what happens to them. Nobody can sell them or destroy them without my permission. I just don't have lawful authority to possess them without certain exemptions, like the club exemption, mini rifle exemption, film and TV exemption, stuff like that. So they are held by other people who have lawful authority, and I can have visitations, but it's only myself that can make the decision to sell them. So yes, if you have your certificate revoked, the police will take away your guns. In some circumstances, you may have the time to even get them to an RFD or to a friend's house, or arrange for the police to take them straight to another location. But in my experience and what I'm aware of, more often than not, they will end up going to a police lockup, usually an evidence lockup, and you will have to arrange for an RFD or somebody with lawful authority, i.e. an open slot if it's a firearm, to go on a firearm certificate, to go there and collect them on your behalf. And then what you do from there is up to you. You can either pay, if it's a friend taking them in, they can sell them on your behalf, or they can keep them and store them on your behalf, and an RFD can do exactly the same. So I ended up selling a lot of them. I can't remember what I had and what I sold now. Fortunately, I was able to sell quite a few of them to friends, so it was good to actually still see those guns being used and also being used by my friends. But I think they all eventually ended up selling them on, or breaking them. And the only guns remaining now from my certificates are the 1522, the Silver Pigeon, and the Zabala, and a single-barreled shotgun. I think that's it. I don't think there's any more. But yeah, as soon as I get my certificates back, they will be going straight onto my. The 1522. I don't know if I can get rid of it. I might just leave it. So they're all actually stored under the Magload RFD now. It's fairly easy with Connors for me to be able to film with them, to go out and use them under the various exemptions. But the 1522 I probably will keep stored under the RFD and not take a slot up with it, because it's a first gen 1522. It's had I think an estimate of over 30,000 rounds through it. It's been the club bike, and it pretty much is the bike. It's actually on loan with somebody else. I mean, they haven't reported any reliability issues, but my slots on my FAC are going to be taken up by the competition guns, and I don't think I would take that into competition anymore. So I don't think I can get rid of it. I don't think I can sell it, but I don't know if I want to take a slot up on the license. Obviously, with a shotgun, the shotguns, you don't have a limit, and 100% they will be signed on to my certificates. The single barreled is quite sentimental to me, and so is the Silver Pigeon. So again, I don't know. I had this conversation, probably an interesting point to some of you. So obviously, I'd applied for a lot of guns, and I probably could get them all in the safe. It's a Bratton Sound safe. Good. I mean, I think it's quoted as being like an 8 to 10 or maybe 10 to 12 gun safe, but you all know you can, like, whatever Bratton Sound says that you can fit in it, you can usually double that number because you can top and tail, right? At the moment, it's just air guns, and, you know, I have 6 air guns there with all the space in the world for them. I could quite easily get another 6 scoped air guns in there, topping and tailing, and then not forgetting that, you know, on the license, I think it was an LBR, 3 LBPs, and a muzzle loader. So 5 of those guns are pistols. So, you know, they can hang on the door, they can fit down behind, and not all of the rifles that I intend to buy will be scoped. So again, even more space. So I think I could squeeze all of them in there. It would be an absolute ball ache. But what I said was, you know, I don't intend to keep all of the guns at home. At the end of the day, I spend the majority of my time in the office at work, and we have an approved armory. From a security point of view, they're far safer there. So pretty much the safe at home will be used for transiting. It will be for when we go to competitions. You know, I'll book the guns out of the armory, and this will be a stop-off point for them. Or if I'm filming videos here, that will be a luxury, to be able to film videos back where all of my video making equipment is. So, you know, I'm not likely to have that many kept here, and there's a number of benefits for that. There's, like, insurance for one. You know, all of the guns are fully insured in the Magload Armory. I don't have to then add them onto the home insurance. I may do, but yeah, the FEO didn't have a problem with that at all. At the end of the day, all they are worried about are that the guns are going to be stored correctly, that they are going to be stored, you know, securely, and that there's not going to be the eventuality where something is left out because I can't get it in the safe. And that's just never going to happen. The safe is more than big enough for what I intend to be able to be bringing home. And, you know, worst case, if I need to bring all of them home and they don't fit, well, I just won't bring them home. I'll just have to go to the office or the armory beforehand and book them out then. But yeah, that I thought, you know, it was something that I thought was going to be a longer discussion. And he was like, no, that sounds, you know, at the end of the day, your office is next to an armory. Why would you want everything kept here? But I don't know, maybe, you know, later on, you know, depending on what I end up doing with the house here in terms of, you know, potential extensions or other buildings built, I may want to build a full armory and keep something. It would be cool. I think, like, life goal would be to have, you know, my studio, an office as the armory, so that the backdrop is all of the guns, and that I can just leave them on the walls, or I can leave them out and have the room as an armory. But I'm going to be a fair way off of that, if I'm going to be completely honest. But, you know, maybe going forward, you know, getting a house. I would love a house with a basement. That's like life goal as well. House with a basement, armored door, no windows or barred windows, armory. Reloading bench, maintenance bench, filming bench, masturbation bench. It'd be my little gun cave. I'd definitely need some Kleenex. Daniel, best insurance for those just doing practical sports. Join the UK PSA. That's it. 100%. So the UK PSA doesn't just cover you for IPSC or even UK PSA disciplines or approved matches. They cover you. It covers you for all practical. There are some caveats, and I might be just, you know, you always read the small print, but it covers you for all practical shooting. I think the way it worked was, as long as you have a safety course, as long as you've completed a UK PSA safety course and you have a competition license, you are covered for any shooting that you are going to do. But even without a safety course, you're pretty much covered. So, like, join the UK PSA, and if you want to know the nitty gritty, you can ask them directly. But as well as covering you for practical shooting activities, they now have revocation insurance. I don't think it covers refusals of grants, but it 100% covers the revocation. So if you were a BAS member and you are, say, more practical focused and you want some sort of revocation protection and insurance, then the UK PSA, even if you're not interested in doing IPSC or attending UK PSA matches, join the UK PSA and you'll have a very good level of coverage. Another, not specifically for practical shooting, but another insurer that personally I'm with is Gunplan. Gunplan is a purely private entity. It is an insurance company, and they specialize in shooting insurance, and I am covered. I have my public liability insurance, so that if I, fuck up and hurt anybody else, or, property gets damaged as a result of shooting, I've got insurance to cover that. And I've also got insurance to cover me in the event of, an accident, so my own medical expenses or stuff like that. And also Gunplan covers revocations and refusals to grant. So, I'm a UK PSA member, so I've got, fairly good insurance there. Gunplan really does cover everything. Any form of shooting you are covered for in any situation, as long as it's lawful. And as I've recommended many times before, even though I don't do that much clays anymore, I am a CPSA member, purely because not only do they have grant and revocation insurance, their in-house counsel is Laura Sainsbury, who is actually my solicitor. So if it gets to the point where my CPSA insurance kicks in, I get my solicitor for free, which would be really, really handy. So, there's that. Funnily enough, I joined the CPSA first before I ended up actually officially instructing Laura. She's very, very good. And just as a side note on that, I get a load of messages and emails about people in sticky situations, and I always end up sending them Laura's way. So her partner as well, Nick Doherty. Laura is a firearms specialist solicitor, and Nick is a firearms specialist barrister. So they're pretty much the dream team. Those are the sort of people that you want representing. They also both co-wrote the Firearms Handbook, which I highly recommend. It really does help break things down and understanding if you want to learn more about the law. I am hoping at some point, I haven't posed it to her yet, but I would love to sit down with her, maybe talk about some of the interesting cases, because she's actually worked on both sides of the story, or both sides of it. She has worked for the police, and she has worked, effectively against the police, representing certificate holders. So she and so is Nick. So they have a very good understanding of how it works and the processes, and I'm sure they have some very, very interesting stories that the both of them could talk about, case law and precedent setting cases that they've been a part of. Whether or not, I don't know. She has done interviews on Sky, but yeah, I'm sort of I'm being a bit selfish and just focusing on what I need to focus on at the moment. Where she is concerned, I don't want to distract her when she's trying to get my certificates back. But so far, her and Nick have got me further than anything else. Any other organisation, and there are a couple of other solicitors out there that have given really good advice. But yeah, which I'm thankful for. But yeah, Laura and Nick have really, really helped. And also I'd love to sit down with her, hopefully with a good success story, and talk over exactly what's happened over the past. I mean, she's been representing me now for a good 6 to 12 months, and yeah, there'd be stuff that I'd love to sit down and talk with her to sort of fill you guys in with some of the stuff, because I hate it, but there's just some stuff that I don't, there's stuff that I don't always share. and I think a lot of you would be very interested in a lot of things that have happened. Unfortunately, my experience of being overly honest on the channel and overly open, i.e. as in, you know, talking about the revocation previously and the whole shutdown of the channel, that unfortunately just sparked so many rumors. And I you know, I like to think that I'm quite an honest and transparent person, and I hate having to certainly keep things from you guys. But like the fucking rumor mill, you know, there are people out there that, you know, I think one of the rumors of how I lost my FAC was I was trying to set fire to my own house, and I was just like, or I tried to drive a car through my own house, and I'm like, what the fuck, you know? It's, yeah. And I mean, like, even I ended up having a sort of a confrontation with the late Mark Bradley because he thought I was banned from Bisley, and I'm stood there on Bisley campus, I'm like, well, I'm not so fucking banned, am I? So yeah, I just for my own sanity, there will be a point where there'll be some very interesting stuff that we go over, and I do intend at some point to talk pretty much start to finish what's gone on over these past 5 years, but and I hope to be able to do that with Laura and sort of come at it from a very legal standpoint. Anyway, that was a bit of a side note. M. Gabriel just got here. Hope the US was good. US was absolutely amazing. I am missing it in some ways. Glad to be back, but absolutely missing it. Would, you know, everyone goes, why didn't you move out there? Why don't you move out there? It's like, yeah, slowly but surely more and more of my life becomes shooting, but there is still a lot of stuff that isn't. Although I can't say the same for Connor's. I think Connor's plan now is to move to Texas. I think he was very impressioned by America. But yeah, I had an absolutely amazing time out there. Hopefully you all in the UK have such websites / watchdogs. So I'd be asking how many Basque lobbyists are there and so on. Not as many as they probably would lead you to believe. Martin, woohoo, joining for the final 5 minutes. Sorry for the delay, pal. Hope you're well, and we'll still watch the video tonight on the night shift. Well, again, appreciate you catching it, and appreciate you going. Appreciate that you're going to watch it back. Hope it's worth it. The beginning of it's a little different. It's a little full auto. Myron Goldman, is it a breeder or Beretta action on the M1 you're looking at? Well, I guess you're talking to somebody else. Stephen, any news on shotgun grants? Been waiting since December, not had any contact from Surrey at all. It really is a postcode lottery at the moment. So as far as I'm aware with Hampshire, they are now accepting new applications, but they're still trying to clear the backlog of previous applications. That's why mine's being processed, because it's obviously been sat at the bottom of the pile for so long. But it really depends what they're doing. If they're open, what their backlog is like, what their workload and sort of workforce is doing. So I can't, it's not a countrywide thing. Some counties have continued operating like nothing happened throughout all of this. Some completely shut up shop. Some are now back up to full speed. Some are still at a snail's pace. So yeah, the best thing really is, if you really want to know, drop them an email, give them a phone call if that's possible. I know even like some counties just completely shut up shop and wouldn't even let you phone them, which was a bit annoying. But yeah, we have to see how things open up. But really, it's sort of unfortunately how long's a piece of string question, because so many different counties are in so many different positions or situations. Moving on to a positive note, a highlight of the year is coming up next weekend. Both myself and Connors and also Paul from Magload will be at the Northern Shooting Show. Magload will have a stand. We haven't had it yet confirmed exactly which hall it is, but it will either be hall 1 or 2, so one of the main halls. So if you guys, so like the Northern Shooting Show, you've probably seen videos of it before. I think it really is the best all-round shooting show because of what you have. It's like a game fair mixed with, it's like the game fair mixed with the British Shooting Show, mixed with the Target Shooting Show. You know, the organizer Paul makes a tremendous effort in trying to get as much variance as possible. So, you know, yes, you have all the shotgun manufacturers and the country where, you know, outfitters and stuff like that, but they also have a lot of, let's have a look at the, what's on, oh, do they not have exhibitors? You know, they have a lot of the practical world there, and I don't think there's as varied show in the UK. There's also all of the activities. So this is the what's on. I'm not going to go into each individual one. They have shotguns, right? But they have the clay line. Do they? Yeah, the game ball clay line. So you can actually go there and shoot. I remember the last show they had the CPSA doing introductions. So, you know, they had young kids. I think like the youngest they had was sort of, I want to say like 12 or 13 years old, maybe even younger. But anyway, young new blood trying shooting for the first time. There was some black powder stuff that you could go and shoot. They had the NTSC competition there. They had air rifle shooting, you had axe throwing, you had archery. So it really is like a proper a proper day out. You know, you can go and do, you don't necessarily just have to be into shooting to go and enjoy it. So that's why I mean it is like more, it is sort of like a game fair. So yeah, it is the Saturday 7th and Sunday 8th of May. That's next weekend. We're going to be up there from the Friday, but we will be there on the stand for the whole weekend. I am hoping, unlike the Target Shooting Show where I had nobble time to go and look around, they, you know, I will have time to go in and take some of it in and go and see some of the stands there and maybe get hands on and at the very least make a video. But yeah, if you have nothing on that weekend, 100%, even if you have something on, you should probably try and rearrange it. Come to the Northern Shooting Show. I know if you live in the Midlands or on the South Coast like I do, it is a hell of a trek, but it is worth it. Make a weekend of it. Stay, you know, drive up there Saturday morning. You know, have a good time on Saturday, stay there the Saturday evening, and you know, anything you missed, go and do on the Sunday, and then drive back home. It's one of the, as I said, it's one of the highlights of the year for me. What are tickets? I know obviously a bone of contention with other shows. So at the moment, tickets are £15 for 1 day ticket, or 20 quid, I guess, on the door. Oh, that's right. I mean, you know, we're talking about BASC members. BASC members are free, so you don't have to pay anything. And children under 15 and under are free as well. There's no, and again, I know this is a point of contention with other shows, no charge for parking either. So, you know, if you and your 15-year-old, and when I say you, I assume that you are the father and are significantly older than the child. So, you know, if a father and son want to go there for a day, it's going to cost 15 quid plus fuel, plus the burgers. You know, if a whole family wants to go, you know, you're saying, you know, mum, dad and 2 children 15 or under, it's 30 quid for a day plus fuel plus food. Significantly cheaper than other shows, and again, there's a lot more to get hands on and go and do, so highly recommend it. But yeah, if just on that point, go and see it. But also, if you want to come and hang out, we do really like it when people come and say hi. You know, we get to shake your hand and actually see people in person that either supports the channel, myself, Connors, or Magload. So we will be there as Magload, but if you want to come up and talk about English shooting, if you want to come and talk about, laws or advice on what gun to get or whatever, please feel free. We don't bite. Connor's promises most of the time. Oh dear, we're dying. My Mac is dying. Anyway, oh no. It happened again. I've got low power. I don't know if you can hear me. Are you there? I'm going to have to wrap it up really quickly on that one before everything dies. But yeah, basically come to the Northern Shooting Show. It's a great show, and we will be there next weekend. I will be streaming next Thursday, 7:30. Hopefully we'll keep a better eye on my my battery and things won't die, if you can still hear me. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to call it there. Thanks everyone for watching. Oh dear. Yeah, I think you can all hear me. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Sorry for the abrupt finish. Hit that like button if you liked tonight's stream. We do this every single week, and I all hope you have a fantastic week, and I will see you right before the Northern Shooting Show on Thursday, 7:30 p.m. You could just plug it in. Yeah, that's the problem. It is plugged in. I know, right? Mac life. Yes, I'm not going to live this one down. Maybe I need to get a new battery. But there we go. Again, thanks everyone for tonight's stream. Again, thank you everyone for your support. And of course, as always, I hope to see you soon.